Hi HR Nation, it's Chris Rainey. Welcome to HR Leaders, the show where we interview today's most successful and innovative HR practitioners. Today we're lucky enough to be joined by Marc Rouse. Is it Rouse, Marc? Well, I should have asked that before in terms of the pronunciation.
Yeah, it's Roos if you're in the UK, it's Royce if you're in Germany, so either one is fine.
Okay, no problem. Marc is the Executive Vice President and CHRO at ConvaTec. Marc, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Chris. Glad to be here.
Fantastic. Marc, fill in the gaps. Tell HR Nation a little bit more about yourself and your journey to becoming the Executive Vice President and CHRO at ConvaTec.
Sure. Thanks, Chris. Well, just briefly, I joined ConvaTec in June of 2016. I've enjoyed a 30-year career which spanned aerospace, financial services, high-tech, life sciences now for the last 15 years, including Boston Scientific, two divisions of Novartis, and now with ConvaTec, which is a newly listed medical device company based here in the UK, inside the FTSE 100. So in terms of my career, Chris, I've grown up mostly on the generalist side, being sort of the HR business partner to my client base, spending a little bit of time in staffing early in my career, but basically developing and deploying to the line client the full portfolio of HR services across these organizations. And so now, since the last 10 years, I've been in the top role. This is now my fifth CEO, but the first time as a CHRO for a publicly traded company, which is markedly different than being the head of HR for a division within a large company. So here I am, and happy to participate. And so I'll turn it back to you, Chris.
Fantastic. And how's your time been in the UK so far? Are we treating you well?
Loved it. It's fantastic. We were in Germany for 5 years before we moved here. My twin daughters are off to university, and so it was time to pursue the top job, and this came to me based in the UK, but living in London, working in Reading, and thoroughly enjoying it.
Fantastic. Good to hear. So going back on what you just said, what really compelled you to pursue a career in the field of HR? Great question, and it gets to one of your latter questions, which is advice that you've gotten. And the best advice I ever got came in the form of a question from my father, who was an executive in the mining business, and he asked me if I'd ever considered working in labor relations, and I hadn't. But I'd grown up hearing about the strife between management and labor, and so it struck me as an interesting career to pursue. And so that was the beginning, and I've never looked back. Fantastic. And what does your morning ritual look like? How do you normally spend the first few hours of your working day?
I'm a creature of habit, like many of us. I get up, have a cup of coffee, clear out my emails from overnight, go for a run virtually every day, and shower, shave, go to work. I take a train from London to Reading, and use the train time to fine-tune my day's priorities, but really use the run to sort of think about the day, about critical issues, and that's a bit meditative, a bit problem-solving, but that's pretty much my morning routine, Chris.
Fantastic. I suppose that leads me on to my next question, which was really getting an understanding of what really occupies your mind on a daily basis.
Sure. So I think that three or four things. First is the HR business partner to the chief executive of ConvaTec, and likewise to his executive committee. Is first. I think second is really focused on leading the HR function company-wide, and making sure that the work that we're doing, the HR strategy, the people management processes we put in place are aligned with and supporting the business strategy. And then a lot of focus on talent, succession planning, and then driving the culture transformation that we're trying to embed here in ConvaTec.
Fantastic. So there's a lot going on then in your mind.
For sure. And if I didn't mention it, we when I joined ConvaTec, we were privately held. It was a spin-off from Bristol Myers Squibb, now nearly 10 years ago. And so I had the opportunity to enjoy
the journey of the final phase of the turnaround, and then the flotation of ConvaTec on the London Stock Exchange, which took place again back in October. So the whole transformation from private to public has also been a fascinating experience.
I can imagine. So you're at this point in your career. You mentioned earlier that you're obviously quite a generalist across all areas. Mm-hmm. But what would you say is your area of expertise? What's one thing, one area that you're that you're more passionate about?
I think that there's two things. I think that one is really around the leadership of the HR function. I've had the fortune to build and lead the great HR teams, and so I think that's a spike. And then the second, in terms of my contribution to the business, is really around the whole talent management, succession planning, able to put talent management systems in place, help the CEO assemble his executive committee, and keep that process moving, both current and then looking forward to what does succession look like in 1 to 2 to 3 to 5 years. Mm-hmm. And so there are probably two areas that I spend a lot of time in.
Mm-hmm. And what's one thing around succession planning that you feel HR leaders should be doing more of or paying more attention to?
It's fundamentally having a talent management process. And so at ConvaTec, we use a 9-box, which looks at sustained performance and learning agility, and learning agility being very specifically defined. Mm-hmm. And then it's really the rigor around, I'd say 5 levels below the CEO, knowing what your talent bench looks like, know what succession looks like, knowing who your top performers are, ensuring that you're focusing development on your not only the top talent, but focused on the most critical roles in business that add the most value. Mm-hmm. And so it's really getting that dialed in that is really critical.
Fantastic. And in terms of the skills side, within HR, it's obviously a big discussion right now in terms of what skills would be most important moving forward in the future within the HR function. What are your thoughts on that? What HR skills will be more important in the future?
I think it's a good question. But I think part one is the ability and interest to understand the business you're in. I think that my experience with HR people tend to be HR people, or they tend to be business people practicing HR. And so I always look for people that understand the business, understand the P&L, understand how we make our money, understand what drives this business. Because I think you have to have that curiosity, interest before you start then looking through the HR lens at, okay, what are we going to do and to add value to this business? So one is a strong business orientation. Mm-hmm. And then I think secondly is really building your portfolio of skills around what interventions you can design and deploy to affect the full employee life cycle, from how do you select people to how do you handle people to the performance management system to how that links to remuneration, how that links to ongoing employee development. So it's really taking a strong business-oriented view of the function, and then looking at where the needs are of the business and deploying the solutions that are going to have the most impact.
Mm-hmm. Is that something that you foster internally to try and build that mentality amongst your team?
Yeah, I mean, I hire for it, and my aspiration for everybody is make yourself indispensable to the business.
Sure.
And so it's less what I do than it is having people that understand that are partnered with their line clients and doing the work that is going to have the most impact. And so I'm fairly insistent on it, and people that work well for me have that orientation, and those that don't, I can't make them great.
Sure.
They need to establish that relationship with their respective line clients. Mm-hmm. And
yeah, that makes perfect sense. Good for them and good for me. No, definitely. Yeah. They have to be. You have to be self-motivated, right? You can't force someone to want to have that mentality. It's very difficult. Sure. You can't train that, unfortunately.
For sure.
So going back to new skills, obviously technology is going to play a huge part and I think we're only at the beginning of that now, and we're just starting to see the effects that the technology will have. How are you currently leveraging technology within the business to your advantage?
I think nothing cutting edge here. I think most organizations and most of the listeners have moved towards more employee and manager self-service by using company portals to manage the various processes, and I think we're probably not dissimilar in that regard. I think that you're seeing more reliance on mobile devices. We're 9,000 employees in 110 countries, and while not everybody has a desktop computer, everybody has a mobile device, and so it's using that increasingly to both disseminate and collect information. I think is something that is changing, and I think also technology will affect the nature of the workforce. I think increasingly you have more and more remote workers at the highest levels of the company, and using various communications modems to get the work done, to manage their organization and stay connected. And so I think you'll see more and more remote workers up to the executive levels in the business, and less reliance on an office and a place to go every day.
Fantastic. And just a bit of a random question, but how have you managed to keep up to date with these fast-moving changes in terms of what technology can bring to HR? Do you have any resources you rely on, or is it really just about keeping your eye out on what's happening around you?
No, leveraging technology is hasn't been foremost for us. I think we're aware of it. I think that this is a business with essentially was stripped of anything that resembled good people management process. And so the last 2 years has really been about reestablishing the foundation for that, and then now building on it. So given the foundational orientation that we've had, it's been less around cutting edge technology, and it is basically getting a thick, stable foundation of good HR people management processes in place to build on.
Fantastic. Well, that's the priority, isn't it? So what have you found to be the most effective way, now obviously as a senior management member of the management team, what have you found to be the most effective way to engage and communicate with your senior leadership team and also the other departments in the business?
Well, I think that again, nothing earth-shattering here. I think that when you have an issue to discuss, obviously face-to-face is best. If not, pick up the phone. I think I tend not to rely on email exchanges to solve issues. I think with my leadership team, it's a biweekly phone call. I think it's a biweekly phone call with the executive committee, a monthly face-to-face meeting. We have an annual leadership meeting. So I think it's depending on the size of the organization, it's as much person-to-person communication and as little reliance on emails for guiding and instructing the organization. Certainly, we do that. We have a regular cascade of information that comes from the CEO, small members of the executive committee, but you can't rely entirely on that. I think that the cascading of information requires person-to-person explanation, discussion, and two-way discussion.
Yeah. So really a constant flow of communication with them, but also in formats to make sure there's no miscommunication. I think one of the things I learned very early on as a manager is not to communicate those types of conversations via email, because they can very easily be misconstrued or miscommunicated via email. And I think a lot of people do take that quicker. It is a quicker approach, but honestly, the time it actually takes to actually get across your point and to communicate, it actually doesn't make it worthwhile. So good to hear you're doing that. Yeah. I appreciate, as you said, it's nothing groundbreaking, but these are small differences that can make a huge, small things that can make a huge difference further down the line.
No, and we also, it's a good point. But we also rely and use frequently, video messaging, from various members of the executive committee, including the CEO, and embed those in our various programs. And I think that, seeing the face with the name and and having the chance to see them make their point is also more meaningful than the written word sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Definitely agree on that. So where do you see the biggest opportunity in the business at the moment, in terms of opportunity within the business, and how will sort of HR help the business deliver on those objectives?
Sure. I think that where we are is we're in our maiden year as a publicly listed company. The listing went successfully. The performance of the company, I think, has been strong since. But the accountability changes dramatically between a privately held company and a publicly held company, and so it's really around just ensuring a regular cadence of execution, and ensuring that we're delivering to our investors what we said we're going to deliver. I think that ConvaTec is a very values-based company. We're in the medical device sector, and so patients benefit from our technologies across our product portfolio. So our ability to further invest, our ability to acquire, the strength of our portfolio depends on a lot of our ability to execute day in and day out the business that benefits not only our shareholders, but benefits the patients, doctors, nurses that rely on our technology as well. So it's not one or the other. It's really both. And so a lot of discussion, a lot of focus right now is around strengthening the performance culture and ensuring execution.
Fantastic. Well, this leads us quite nicely onto our Quickfire Round. So I'm going to be asking you 5 questions, and you have no more than 30 seconds to give us some amazing answers. Are you ready?
I'll do my best, Chris. Thanks.
So what's the number one thing that was holding you back from becoming a HR leader?
So I think, my aspiration was to be in the top job in the company. And I think that as I was talking to search firms about that step, I think that the biggest challenge becoming the first time CHRO was actually getting the first job. And this is a $2 billion business. I came from a $10 billion business. But still, the question that gets asked of everybody is how is this person going to interact with the board? Is it the top job? And so I think for aspiring CHROs, it's really building the portfolio skills so that you can compete for and get your first role. And I think then it grows from there. So the biggest obstacle is actually getting in the top job in a company from a divisional role in a large company.
And making that transition. Is that right?
Correct.
Fantastic.
Yep.
And what's the best piece of business advice that you've ever received?
I think I already mentioned one, and that was the question I received from my father, which is, "Hey, have you ever thought about HR?" And then the second one came from another mentor where he said, "Had you ever thought about private equity?" Right? And that gave me pause to think not only about initial role in a PLC, but what private equity might look like. And I guess the message to the listeners is, sometimes advice comes in the form of, direct advice. Sometimes it comes in the form of thoughtful questions. And so as you're trying to advise someone, think about asking a thought-provoking question rather than offering advice. It certainly has had an impact on me in my thinking.
Fantastic. And what's one book that you would recommend to our audience, and why?
I'm not a particularly big business book reader. I have, bookshelves of them, like probably most of us. I think some of the most interesting writing has come from Malcolm Gladwell, and so I'd recommend any of Malcolm Gladwell books. They're not business books per se, but I think they give a great insight and perspective into the human condition, and I remember a lot from each of those books.
Well, I'll definitely link. Any favorites that I could put in?
I think Tipping Point remains one of my favorites.
Fantastic. Well, I'll definitely link that in the description for the members. And
sure.
Share one internet resource that you use to increase productivity or stay connected with current events.
I'm on LinkedIn, like virtually everybody is. But to be honest with you, Chris, the one thing which I use to success is Google. If I have any question in personal, professional life, I type it out on Google, and there tends to be a plethora of information out there that is a good starting point. So I'm a very Google search engine oriented person, and there's usually great information out there.
Completely agree. This is the reason I have this podcast. Even a lot of people said to me, Chris, well, how do you know how to do a podcast? I was like, well, there's a thing called Google that exists there.
Yeah, that's right.
You can provide every piece of information that you need. So I think we're living in an amazing era where you've got unlimited information at your fingertips. So yeah, I definitely would agree with that one.
Absolutely.
And what's one thing about your business that you're most excited about today?
I think I'm excited about ConvaTec. I think that our vision, our mission, our purpose is fantastic. I think I have a chance to work with a great CEO, Paul Marvick, a great executive committee, and finally my HR colleagues. I mean, that's what gets me up in the morning, gets me excited. I think great company, great people, and a great culture. It's hard to beat.
That's fantastic. Well, look, you've given us some great actionable advice, and I definitely know that our members will be better for it. So thank you for that. Give our listeners one parting piece of guidance, and then we'll say goodbye.
You bet. And thanks for having me, Chris. It's been a pleasure. I think there's two things I'd say. One is give people for success in business is be a decent person, be a respectful person, be a collaborative colleague. It will never serve you wrong.
Fantastic.
And then my final piece of advice is live and work outside of your home country. It's a tremendous experience. And so those are my two sage advices.
Fantastic. Well, look, thank you again. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us. Guys, head over to hrdleaders.com, and there you'll find all of the show notes on the episode that we've been talking about, the timestamps, links, resources, etc. Thank you again for taking the time to share your journey with HR Nation, and I wish you all the best until we next speak.
Thanks, Chris. My pleasure.
Thanks a lot.